Does this mean then that even if the bomb spares us, we're going to find our best minds denying life, creeping away into caves to escape, to desert us, and to lose themselves in the dark labyrinths of the over-convoluted brain? No. And again you may well ask, why not? Because today we are in the psychological revolution. What does that mean? It means just this. It means that these last 400 years, this last dozen generations of Western men, which we call the modern age, is really the age of the four revolutions. The first was the religious revolution, when the Western Church split into Reformed Protestants and Counter-Reformed Catholics. The second was the political revolution, when the world split into democracies and dictatorships. The third was the economic revolution, when the world of industry divided between centralized socialism and private enterprise. And now we're in the fourth, the psychological revolution, when coming at last to the true center of our troubles, which is ourselves, our minds, we're divided between two opposing psychologies. One psychology regards man as a freak, and his society as being a mess of freaks. Therefore, this school says, the only thing to be done is to try and help the individual to adjust himself between his animal, antisocial instincts and that conglomerate of social taboos called morality. The other psychology looks on man and his society as being unfinished. It regards his conflicts as growing pains, his morality as provisional answers to developmental problems, his urges as drives that are dangerous and even deadly if they are denied or allowed to burst out, but which are creative if their molten flow is channeled. This latter view has proved to be right, now that it has been established that the body-mind of man is unfinished. And because man is able to know this basic fact about himself, he is able to see that he can and must carry out his true fulfillment. But granted that this is true, can it come about? Yes, and it is coming about even now. It's taking place before our very eyes. And we're failing to see it because we are still looking at the after-image of the past. The struggle we call the Cold War was first a balance of terror, then a teeter-totter of salesmanship, who could buy the most neutrals, an economic war with each side trying to purchase support, and now it is a competition in understanding human beings. Remember that 2 years ago Mr. Khrushchev said to Senator Humphreys, "We have to find out what motivates men." No man can rule today who is not a psychologist. No ideology can win today that does not combine the three human sciences, psychology, and psychology's two nephews, sociology and anthropology. The reason for the Cold War now being at stalemate is that while both sides are beginning, with the help of psychology, to be contemporary, each of these two racing giants is still tied to pre-psychological slogans about itself and about its rival. The Russia of 1961, though still calling itself communist, and still called communist by us, has already long ceased to build a classless society. And we still call ourselves a classless society of private enterprise, which the Russians still call capitalism, when most sociologists emphasize how socially stratified we are and also how bound into a ramifying bureaucracy. Yes, you may say, yes, it may well be true that we're getting further and further from freedom, while the Russians are getting ever and ever further from Marx's mistaken dream of a society where the state has withered away. But surely, you may go on to say, you could not have a more evident presage of disaster. Doesn't this convergence show that the collision is inevitable, that both super-armed superstates must crash head-on? It is hard to be realistic here, but let's try. For if we dare be frank, what do we actually find? A truth that does not please either the revolutionary or the reactionary. But it is a truth that offers to solve for us our riddle, the riddle which we must solve, or we shall all be liquidated, or even vaporized. What is it that is happening? Under the rising pressure to survive, both of the world antagonists are taking on, they have to take on, the same structure. The atoms that make up an iron bar are free to point in many different directions until they are magnetized. Then, under the drive of magnetism, every atom points in the same direction. So it is with human society, and its atoms, its constituents are individual selves. Under the demand for the highest possible efficiency, human society always organizes. And this means more and is more, much more, than just being magnetized, just being charged. For if human beings are fully, rightly, and naturally organized, then they become an organism. Of course, the word organization has always upset liberals, and with good reason, for it usually meant coercion. But we have now learnt that an organization, if it is to work, has to turn into an organism. Organization is the first fumbling and hurried step towards reaching organic, living relationship and communion. Look how, as an actual fact, human society has survived and has grown. As any group of people struggled to define itself, it first had to find a leader to whom it could be loyal. Next, the leader had to have trusted lieutenants to whom he could assign areas of responsibility. Finally, the leader had to have close round him a picked staff. And this natural incorporation of human beings, whenever a society was under the instant demand for flexible order, has marked every organization of defense. Every army, if it is to survive and serve its purpose, must always take on this organic, fourfold structure of chief of staff with his staff, the commissioned officers, the non-commissioned officers, and the enlisted men. Nor is this confined to defense, to assuring survival on the battlefield. Just look at the structure of the civil business of any modern state. Every great forward-looking corporation today is an organism of 4 integrated organs or members. Every corporation that today really sustains the national effort in all its aspects is composed of pure research, applied research, manufacture, and distribution. That is to say, each of these corporations has eyes which provide it with vision, with foresight, a brain that manages and plans, hands that grasp the environment and shape it to human needs, and feet firmly based on the ground. Or to put it the other way round, and start with distribution. There's that great, sane, basic class of mainly routine producers who, through their wages, become also the main routine consumers. This is the class of what might be called common sense, down-to-earth people that works so that it may win leisure to enjoy its home, its family, its healthy amusements, and its appetites. This firm base of the national body sustains manufacture. The second class the class of engineers. Then, when in the 20th century the industrial aspect of the economic revolution began to turn into instrumental evolution, there emerged the applied researcher, the managerial type, and in consequence, men and machines began to achieve some kind of balance. Finally, pure researchers, foresight men, scanners, have been found to be necessary to provide vision, if industry was to be saved from the failure of excessive, blindly repetitious success. In the past, any society which grew had to provide the structure within which that growth could take place. And today, every society that is to survive must grow. It must organize its manpower and its mind power in an organic structure. It is now clear that such a society must be an organism. Whatever it may still choose to call itself, it must be firmly based on those people who are content not to deviate from their unexacting happiness, those routineers who require of their society only that it give them the security of fine, orderly, ample earthly living. Then, that the great majority may enjoy itself, there must be the engineers, who in turn, and in order to do their job, require the managers, the planners. But that is not enough. Already the most advanced organizations we know, those most contemporary organisms, the great business corporations, have learned that. Big productive business today is the most foresightful social body mankind has ever seen. The very word which they apply to their tasks shows that these plans are rightly called projects. They are planned ventures. And to make these charted explorations, big industry needs something even more than brains. It needs eyes. Beside applied researchers, planners, it must have pure researchers, scanners. Now, here a grave question must be faced. Business and the armed forces, production and defense, each has been driven to develop themselves into fourfold organisms: the firm base, the feet; the capable grasp, the hands; the pondering strategy, the head; the wary vigilance, the eyes. All are there. But what about society as a whole? What about the nation? Where in this venture of unlimited authority, unlimited liability, and unlimited force are the eyes? Where is the scanner, the seer? Where is the pilot who can speak with supreme authority because he knows the know-why, because he knows the answer to the psychological enigma, because he can answer those despairing scientific materialists, those mechanists, who, using only our present way of seeing things, have to tell us, in the sight of science, life is a tale told by an idiot, and that man is a futile flash of ineffective intelligence in an infinite, incomprehensible darkness. And here again we must be honest. No answer that could hold the attention of either the masses or their masters comes from the churches, those mighty and well-meaning organizations that once claimed they held the consciences of our rulers. The churches perform all manner of popular purposes, but in one role, the one role that as a historic fact gave them their station, their rights, their privileges, the role of the prophet. On this essential requirement they are silent. They fail to speak. And prophets are precisely what we must have if we are to be saved. Yes, saved from annihilation. That is what a real seer, a super scanner is. He is a prophet. For real seership is more than just scanning. It is the power to show beyond any doubt, to show before it is too late what lies ahead, to show the consequences of blind behavior, to reveal the working of natural moral law. For we know that there is a lag in the working of natural moral laws, as there is a lag in the showing up of deficiency diseases. And we also know that there is a law of compound interest in the moral world. The longer the bill is postponed, the heavier the charges. Of course, it sounds absurd to ask for profits, real profits, not noble rhetoricians repeating the eternal commonplaces, but men who know with such clarity that they can pinpoint their forecasts and show in detail and in time where a course of action will and must lead. However, today we take very seriously the task of human forecasting. We all know that big sums and big brains are spent and bent in attempts to estimate how men will behave, whether the men in control will or will not push that button. Yes, we now want to know the future. We know that we must know. But is that sort of knowing possible? Yes, it could be. For here is another thing about man, about ourselves. When we want to know a thing badly enough, then we are always able to know, able to find out. We don't find out because most of the time we can't be bothered. And we do know that we have to be bothered nearly out of our wits. There has to be a fire put under us to rouse us from our mulish laziness and make us get a move on, to wake us up from our doped self-content. And here is still another thing. We do know that our minds have powers which we are too lethargic to develop. We're too self-complacent, too pleased with the way we see things now, for us to learn to exercise these essential gifts. Yes, I'm talking about one of the intellectual scandals of our time, about our refusal, led by the academic world, to pay attention to the deep mind and its strange power of extrasensory perception. That extrasensory perception which brings with it the particular power we need today above all things, the power of precognition. We know that it exists. Its existence has been proved by rigid statistical evidence, the one certain method of proof acknowledged by all research as being the test for establishing the presence of a power. But of what possible use could such a strange knowledge be to us now? Just this. Today we must be able to know what will happen. Conversely, today we can know that the consequences of our acts can, if we wish, be foreseen. Present today is the intense pressure needed to make us open up this vision. And present already is the promise that it can be done if we care enough. It is a real demonstration of our stubborn determination to turn away from the true path of our evolution, increase consciousness, that we now concentrate on the gladiatorial game of tossing athletes headlong into the shortwave furnaces of outer space, when it might well be that 1% of the money we put into the space race might make it possible for us to break through the time barrier. However, that which we will not intentionally do to enable us to enter a new world of understanding, we may be driven to do, because we shall survive only if we can master time. In foresight, then, lies our one hope of survival, and that precisely and harshly is what seership can give us. Without vision the people perish, is an ancient and a true saying. But we have let our vision, our seership, fade. We have trusted in traditional findings that were true in their day, but which needed confirmation and enlargement today. We trusted in precedent, but today as never before, precedent misguides us. Only prescience can lead us out of the present maze in which a time bomb has been planted. We can acquire prescience today, and not a moment too soon. The price, though, is high, and there seems little sign today that those who have power and those who have prestige, the guardians of resources and their appointed guardians of truth, are even now ready to take up this work. For they would have to give up their very comforting old picture of things. They would have to admit that it is a mistake to view the universe as being a mindless mass of raw material and raw, very raw power, which we can use as we wish, without it ever asking us for our credentials or demanding that we answer for our violations of moral law. Further, not only would we shun such a possible demoting of ourselves from being the sole arbiters of right, but a thing even more terrifying to our calloused souls than moral justice, and having to face a power to whom we are subject, is this question: who would really dare to foresee the future? Research in precognition has shown that events, usually a disaster, can be foreseen, and would therefore seem to be fixed in time. However, the same research has also shown that as far as a person who has had a true glimpse of the future is concerned, if he chooses to employ his free will to turn from the otherwise fatal course leading to the disaster he has foreseen, he will avoid it. Here then is the choice. Here is the one real hope of survival. We are not asked to take a leap into the dark. A small crack of light has appeared in the wall of our prison, and we must repeat, the pressure is so great that we may decide to devote ourselves, however painful the light, to prizing open this window of vision, this door of deliverance. But one thing is certain: if we do gain seership, simply breaking through the time barrier will not save us from ourselves, though it may save us from the blind collision of two convergent ideologies. And though we would survive, survival would not be enough. No, if in the face of this knowledge which is now breaking on us, and which we are now driven to break open to us, we remain just creatures that have survived, we shall not survive for long. For with this knowledge goes still another demand. We must grow up to this terrific vision. If we are to go on, we ourselves must grow on. Our next exploration together, therefore, must inevitably deal with the urgent problem of growth.